Morning. It's time to call to order the January 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Oklahoma City Airport Trust. Our first item is to approve the minutes of the December 19th, 2024 Oklahoma City Airport Trust meeting. I'd like to entertain a motion in a second. And the item passes. Okay. All right, we'll go into the director's report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. One item I wanted to mention, then I have a couple slides to go over. So I think as all of you have seen, we did reach a record number of passengers in 2024, just over 4.6 million, and which is about 200,000 more than last year. So continued good growth at the airport, and which is obviously a good sign for the community, and so exciting times at the airport. I wanted to go over some slides, and this is a draft report that we have been working with the consultant on, and I wanted to show you kind of what we have at the moment, and then ultimately we'll finalize it. But the task of our study that we started last year was to determine long-term what we need at the airport for facilities. And long-term, we're talking 30 plus years, but I just felt it was a good opportunity for us to take the time and reserve space for things that we need in the future, because we're a rapidly growing community, so we wanted to try to get ahead of it. The first slide is just kind of a terminal overview and kind of shows in general what we may end up with, but you can see where the existing terminal is and where the existing concourse is with the gates, and then some of the colored areas are some of the expansions that we ultimately get into. And today, if we look at our facilities, when it comes to gates, we have enough gates. Of course, we added 4 more gates in 2021. Our checkpoint is well positioned for now. We're not having any particular issues with capacity there. The one area we are having capacity issues is with our terminal roadway, capacity issues and constraints there. If you go to the next slide, Lana. Ultimately, this shows what we're ultimately targeting to have for our terminal roadway. Today, this is not how it is today. This is ultimately where we'd like to get. Today, on the lower level, we have 3 lanes, and that's as much as we have for passenger traffic. We have a separate commercial lane, but 3 lanes really isn't enough in the baggage claim area. There's congestion on a regular basis there. And then on the upper level, we have 4 lanes. What this shows ultimately is an expanded curb with 6 lanes and a median in the middle. And that ultimately, based on the studies that our consultant showed us, would meet our traffic requirements for the long term. And one of the other challenges we have is our deck that we have that serves the departures roadway is structurally not strong enough to handle a lot of the larger vehicles. So large buses aren't able even to use that upper curb. So our strategy long term is to replace that and expand our roadway. If you go to the next slide. And the way that we approached this with the consultant was looking at milestones when it comes to passenger levels. And so we're at 4.6, working our ways to 5 million. And so we thought, well, what would we need when it comes to 6 million passengers? And starting at the gates, really the gates are still okay at 6 million passengers. We have enough gate capacity for that. What we end up doing is ultimately building another parking garage, which we're in design for now. And then the close-in garage that we have to the terminal would ultimately, we'd knock that down and start rebuilding the roadway out front. And that's some of the coloration that you're seeing there. You can see the existing terminal roadway, the horseshoe, would ultimately be demolished, and we would start rebuilding that front curb. Next slide. Lana. And then 8 million is another milestone we looked at, and ultimately that reconstructed roadway would then be expanded out further. And you can see ultimately what we would end up doing is reorienting the roadway and squaring it off and giving us more linear frontage, adding another parking garage in close proximity to the terminal, and then we'd actually start building out what we call the head house, the terminal area that includes the ticketing and the baggage claim and everything else. And then you can see on the gate side, by the time we reach 8 million passengers, we'd have to add more gates, and that is the direction we would go for gates. And then, finally, we looked way out in the future, the next slide, Lana, 20 million passengers. And the thing that I think we wanted to figure out is, do we have enough space to accommodate all of that activity? And ultimately we do. You can see we would, in the gate area, we would ultimately expand around the corner and work our way around to the north and add more gates in that direction. And then to the west, we could add more gates. So we have the space to accommodate that many passengers. We would continue to build out the terminal area with additional baggage claim and ticketing. This particular illustration showed a new central checkpoint in the middle. That's just a concept at this point. I think ultimately we may have just 2 checkpoints, but this exercise was really just to figure out, do we have the space to accommodate us for the very long term? And so our intention with this effort is really today is just to kind of show you the concepts that are under consideration. This ultimately would lead to a long list of projects that we would undertake over the next 20 years to make this happen. And so I think the good news is that we've got the space to accommodate long-term growth, and I think we're in a good place to start thinking about that. This helps us long-term to deconflict, to make sure as we're looking at projects that we're thinking very long-term. And so what we will do is ultimately wrap this phase of the project up and then dive into, the 6 million passenger projects, and then looking at 8 million and beyond. And
So how long is 20 million? How far out is that?
Great question, Bob. I don't know. It depends how fast we grow, but
That would be pretty great.
we kind of look at, you think about other communities that have seen tremendous growth. I mean, Austin, Texas comes into mind, and I think there's lots of similarities with Austin, Texas and Oklahoma City, and they ultimately have run into an issue with capacity because they've grown so rapidly. And we're just trying to stay ahead of that. So I think what we wanted to demonstrate is that we can accommodate that long-term capacity.
So is this going to be something we could see like, phased out in terms of like what would be the first thing, second, third, and
Right.
over a number of years, 20
Yep.
years? So what would be the first?
Well, the first one is already underway. We're in design for another garage. So we would construct that garage and then come back and demolish the closest garage to the terminal,
Okay.
which then allows us to expand the roadway. So that's kind of the sequence of
Okay. And that one, the purple one, that's the one in this slide, the new one?
Yeah, right, yeah. And then, right. So that's kind of how things would start falling into place.
Are we extending the tunnel down to that new one
The
too?
tunnel is there.
It's
and
already
that's-
there.
Yeah, and that we would definitely keep that. We see that as a huge advantage as we're doing all that construction, is that the tunnel will be available for people to get, of course, around or avoid the construction. And so that'll be a big part of all those projects.
Great.
So in the first expansion, like where you're doing the road work and all, and you're making the changes there, what happens with like from the roadway to the terminal? What creates that access point? Because right now, it's front door.
Yeah.
But that would, before you get to the place that you're expanding out and creating that additional terminal space,
Right.
what happens?
Well, a lot of that is the tunnel, actually. That will help us work around the activity. Some of that is to be defined yet, Craig.
Okay.
That gets into a lot of more minutia and detail
Okay.
that we have to figure out. And, it's probably a combination of, we retain that existing roadway as long as we can to provide access. In the meantime, we're building the new roadway, right? And then at some point, then you have your transition where you demolish the old and then the new one's ready.
Right.
I would imagine it's a series of connections from the new roadway of a bridge, some kind of pedestrian bridge or something that comes across, but that hasn't been defined yet.
Okay.
Just for a point of reference, what is like Dallas's annual passenger count? DFW,
Oh, they're approaching 100 million.
are they?
Yeah,
So considerably larger than, I knew that,
of course, yeah.
but what is Austin?
Austin is, they are, I think, between 20 and 30 million.
Wow.
So, yeah, and that's been a very rapid growth for them, of course. We just felt it's a better exercise as opposed to trying to put a date on the map when we need this. Because, you can track where your passengers are going, so it's like, oh, we're moving. So we need to be moving on the 6 million level passenger projects right now because we're getting, continue to get pretty close to that, so.
Any other questions? Okay, next up, we have Oklahoma City Will Rogers International Airport.
Item A is a ground service agreement for courtesy vehicles with 21C OKC LLC, Fordson Hotel. Item B is supplement 7 to the management service agreement with ABM Aviation, Inc. for parking and shuttle bus services. Item C is amendment 2 for professional services with Alford Hall Monahan Morris for new parking garage. Item D is change order 1, construction contract with Diversified Construction for logistics support facility fire sprinkler replacement, Mike Maroney Aeronautical Center. Item E is change order 1 with Globe Construction, registry building exterior lighting, Mike Maroney Aeronautical Center. F is change order 3 with Downey Contracting Federal Inspection Services Facility, increase 32 calendar days. G is approved plans project manual for advertising of bids for Hangar 9 HVAC replacement, Mike Maroney Aeronautical Center. H is plans and project for advertisement for bids for Air Navigation Center 1 mechanical renovation, Mike Maroney Aeronautical Center. And I, approved plans and project manual for advertisement for bids for passenger boarding bridge replacement phase 3.
Okay. You've heard the request for approval for Will Rogers. Is there a motion and a second? And the item passes. Okay, next up we have Wiley Post Airport.
Mr. Chairman, item A is supplement hangar lease agreement with Pronto LLC to update authorized aircraft. Item B is amendment 1 with Trajan Flight Atlantic Aviation to memorialize and acknowledge capital investment in facilities in primary lease commencement date. Item C is amendment number 1 to uniform water lease with City of Bethany to extend primary term of lease for 6 months. Item D is amendment 1 with TJ Campbell Construction drainage improvement increase of $39,015.70 in 10 calendar days. Item 4, change order 2 with Dewitt Construction widen runway 17 right 35 left, increase of $21,091.16 in 11 calendar days. F is change order with Rudy Construction, Atlantic Aviation, hangar ramp 14 replacement, increase of $2,249.33 in 10 calendar days.
Okay. Any questions? Is there a motion and second for Wiley Post Airport? And the item passes. Okay, next up, we have Clarence E. Page Airport.
Mr. Chairman, item A, final acceptance of completed project with Libra Electric for the runway 17 right 35 left Pappian wind cone rehabilitation. Item B is lease agreement with Jerry L. Calvert. Item C is lease agreement with the Davoli Third Family Limited Partnership. Item D is lease agreement with James A. Thomas. Item E, resolution rescinding previously approved resolution dated October 24, 2024, authorizing Director of Airports on behalf of the Trust to execute and submit the U.S. Bank Multi-Service Aviation Merchant Application with U.S. Bank National Association and associated documents.
Okay. You heard the request for approval for Clarence Page Airport. Is there a motion and second? And the item passes. Next up, we have general.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to take item F first, and Bob, I think you wanted to defer that item?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. We
Yep.
talked about that. I appreciate the trust staff working with this group to come up with a solution for the self-fueling. And I understand that those negotiations are underway, so this resolution is no longer needed, or at least we can table it for this time to allow some more time for those negotiations to continue. So we'll move that from the...
We can
Want to
defer
entertain
it.
a motion to defer?
Yeah, I will move to defer item F of general
To the next meeting?
to the next meeting.
Yeah.
February meeting.
I'll move it.
Need a second.
Okay. It's been moved and second to defer the item F to the
Thank you.
following meeting. Motion is second. And the item passes. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, general, item A, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program and overall goal setting for fiscal year 24 through 26. Item B is Amendment 1, professional service contract with Enercon Services and Freeze Nichols on-call multi-year environmental compliance services, increase of $250,000. Amendment C is Amendment 2 with Globe Construction, baggage claim unit replacement, Will Rogers Airport, amending architect engineer name to Park Hill Smith & Cooper, Inc. D, Amendment 4, real estate broker services agreement with CBRE, extend second option period March 26, 25 to March 25, 2026. Item E, request for proposals to advertise for solicitation of on-call airport management consultant, provide various airport consulting services. Item G, resolution authorizing director to purchase street sweepers and specialty sweepers and related equipment utilizing Sourcewell agreement not to exceed $400,000 per fiscal year.
You heard the request for approval for general. Is there a motion and second? And the item passes. Next up, we have easements.
Item A is navigation hazard easement 3715 Southwest 15th Street.
Okay. Is there a motion and second for easements? And the item passes. Okay. Next up, we have requisitions, a requisition ratifying the prior approval of certain requisitional payments and a resolution approving requisitional payments. Is there a motion and second? And the item passes. Are there any comments from trustees? Any comments from staff? Any citizens wishing to be heard? Seeing none, we are adjourned.